Guys, can we quiet down? I'm trying to record. How's everyone's week going? I had a bachelorette party last weekend, so I drove cross country by myself for the first time ever, so that's my achievement of the week. What's everyone up to? What are you guys crocheting and knitting today? So Hank Green is getting flack from the internet for his AI use, and I hesitated on making this video because I feel like a broken record at this point. I think 80% of my commentary videos are about a company or an individual getting exposed for AI use whilst working within an industry that's actively being harmed by AI. But the latest Hank Green situation sparks what I think is a perspective I haven't touched on, but I'm not doing the whole terms and conditions length disclaimer page, so if you want to get mad because there was a nuance about AI that I didn't mention, even though I mentioned it in 8 of my previous videos, please touch grass. So Hank Green is an internet personality and he's known for being very knowledgeable about science. He's a bit like Bill Nye. He makes these educational videos mainly on YouTube about things like outer space and physics and whatnot. He's been receiving a lot of criticism in the past couple of days because in one of his videos on the channel Complexly, which is like the parent company to channels like Crash Course and SciShow, he said, "I appreciate the pushback."
And I appreciate the pushback.
Which sounds like a ridiculous reason to start throwing accusations of AI use at somebody, but it was raising alarm bells because it sounds like a response to a ChatGPT prompt. Because you know when you ask ChatGPT things, before answering your question, sometimes it'll praise you by saying something like, "Wow, this is such an interesting research direction," or "I really admire your curiosity." Or if ChatGPT gives you a lackluster response, which let's be real happens a lot, and you might have to double down and be like, "No, this is a bad response, I wanted this, this, and this," then it may give you a follow-up response starting with something like, "I appreciate the pushback, I appreciate the criticism." According to Hank himself, this was not actually a ChatGPT response that he copy-pasted into a script and accidentally forgot to delete. And there is context for this. So the pushback he was referring to was something that was said earlier in that very, very long video. It's a video titled, "Does Hank Green Shave His Butt? Soupy Time Asks Hank Anything." It's an interview series that he has on Complexly where he invites guests and they ask him a bunch of burning questions. So the guest for this episode is Soupy Time, also known as Georgie. They're doing this interview and then there's a bit of a tangent because Georgie says, "That's a made-up word."
Angriest? That's fake.
That's a made-up word. That's not real.
And then Hank goes, "Well, all words are made up."
They're all made up words, Georgie.
And then Georgie pushes back and says, "No, some words have intrinsic meaning," and then she references the Kiki and Booba experiment.
What about like the... Okay, never mind.
Well, hit me. Do you think that there's some that aren't made up?
There's like Booba and Kiki.
Okay, great. Now we're talking about Booba and Kiki?
Like, isn't that a word that
Future
exists
Hank.
through...
And Hank is kind of like, let's ask future Hank, because I don't actually have a good explanation for that right now.
Current Hank is not well-versed enough on Booba and Kiki, though he knows what they are. But future Hank is going to tell you about Booba and Kiki.
And I appreciate that Hank does this actually, because I think we need to normalize simply not having enough information to be able to speak on something. You know, I think nowadays not enough people are like, "You know what, I don't have an informed opinion, I'm gonna go read up on this and then get back to you." And Hank does exactly that, because the video then cuts to a subsegment of future Hank in his studio, and he proceeds to give an in-depth explanation on the Booba and Kiki experiment and whether or not he thinks words are made up. And it's actually quite interesting, so if you want to watch the video, I've linked it in my description. And here is where he says, "I appreciate the pushback," and he's referring to the pushback that Georgie made when they were like,
Isn't that a word that
Future
exists
Hank.
through any language that people can determine?
Does this mean that words aren't made up? No, words are definitely made up, but it does mean that there are things that matter to a community of brains creating language together. The sounds are not blank, they matter. There's a thing in there that matters, and that's very cool. A better way to say it, and I appreciate the pushback, is a word is a human invention.
And Hank responds by saying, "I didn't use AI in that area. I didn't accidentally read out a ChatGPT response, but I'm gonna be real with y'all. I do actually use AI for my content, and I think I've been using it way too much." In a tweet, he says the following: "I produced this under a ton of pressure, so I went and checked my process from start to finish. I did use ChatGPT for research on this script, and watching it, I definitely get an AI feel. So I I think it's fair to say I was relying too much on generated notes. That's the thing I've been doing, and it's a bad habit at a time when I've overcommitted myself. But I just went to the notes and the script for this, and neither contain the "I appreciate the pushback" line, so that particular moment was an ad-lib in reference to my guest pushing back on me saying that words are purely made up. He's being a bit vague here, and a couple people felt that he was either backtracking or making up a lie to make it sound plausible for him to say that when he actually was accidentally reading out a response. I don't know. Hank also put out a longer statement on his own subreddit. 3 things to start. I'm mortified that I've let so many people down, and I think I understand how that happened. I'm gonna change things about how I make stuff. Complexly's AI policy is public and well considered and adhered to by the whole team. I think it's worth reading. Complexly is the nonprofit that makes Crash Course and SciShow and a bunch of other shows that I do not write for. The thing that everything we do is based on is that you know that what I'm saying are my thoughts coming from my brain in the way I decide. I have made that harder, and I'm sorry. I have been relying too heavily on AI as a research aid. It can be very useful for this task, giving me access to a lot of papers I didn't know existed really fast, but I think that has been to the detriment of my work because it has not given me the freedom to find all of my own ways into and around a topic. But for clarity, the origin of claims in my videos are not ChatGPT's said this. I have been using AI to locate papers and other resources for learning about topics. You are still getting my takes based on what I read, know, and learn. I think what people have said in this thread about me diluting myself is spot on. Ultimately, what I am most scared of is ruining myself for people, but I have not been managing my impulses well. You need to know that my words are mine. I don't think that this hasn't been true, but I've been moving so fast that my own process isn't actually clear to me, and I want to have it be a guarantee moving forward. What I can't guarantee, though, is that we will agree about this technology or what to do with it. I think that's good. We need a lot of kinds of folks critiquing this technology. I'm not a pure AI hater, which people in the AI industry know. So when I say that the way these models were trained deeply disturbs me, that lands differently. When I say that I think that the speed at which these companies are trying to consolidate economic power should freak out everyone in the world, that's coming from someone who has nuanced takes. When I say I worry about the climate impacts of this rollout, that is not me saying I don't think this tech should ever exist. It's me saying, for God's sake, please don't make our biggest problem worse. It is very likely that you, the reader, and I disagree on or how or even whether AI should be used. I think it makes sense for that disagreement to exist, but I have also always believed that my audience is more likely to be right than I am. You know what this feels like in a way I can't. And I am so sorry for diluting myself in this way and harming the thing that we have all built together. As for the "why don't you just make less? No one is making you do this," I'm not sure that's how I work. I've been feeling the pressure of, oh, I have this little video idea, I need to get it out real fast so I can get to the more important stuff, and I create when I feel that pressure. But making more things does not make me make better things. It does not make the big thing that we've been doing for 20 years better. I know that I can manage myself more effectively. I want to make videos like the one I made yesterday on Hank's channel where the writing was the whole thing and I felt it all the way down and have been so enriched by people's responses to it. And sure, I'm probably going to make dumb, unscripted, straight-to-camera thoughts videos sometimes, and then I'll play connections. But mostly I need to come to terms with the fact that the level of dopamine I've been getting from interacting with LLMs, with doing more and more and more and more, is not healthy for me or good for the world. It is careless and has disconnected... I'll be right back, y'all. Okay, where were we? It is careless and has disconnected me from where people are on this. I was talking about this with Catherine last night and she did not pull any punches. Frankly, neither did John. Neither of them think I've been being healthy. I need to readjust. So, what changes? Expect less Hank's channel. It may need to pause for a while. It may be that Hank's channel comes back with writing and research support. It may be that it comes back with just way fewer videos. I'm gonna spend this time finishing a video I've been working on for ages that I think really matters. Smush and 4x3 are getting paused as well. If there are bugs, there are bugs. I have backlog of 4x3 boards right now, and frankly, writing them is usually a solace to me, but if we run out, I am not going to worry about that. So if it just reverts to a static board one day, that'll be that. I do deeply want to support Good Store and Complexly in whatever way I can, so there may be some stuff on that front. But the reliance on me has always been risky, so we need to build for that as well. I'm very sorry for harming the thing this is all based on. It's clear to me that he's pretty ashamed of his AI use, and he knew all this time that it wasn't the right course of action, which I think is the case for a lot of individuals, and honestly, I like his response. I think it's detailed, I think it's vulnerable, it seems honest, he has a clear call to action, and I think that's a lot more than what you can say for most influencer responses. I get the impression this was a long time coming. There's two things worth noting about Hank. Firstly, he is wildly successful, and he started his YouTube career way before LLMs were a thing, and he built it without the help of AI. Secondly, he has made several videos talking about AI, and he's expressed a lot of skepticism and concern over what it means for us.
There's a ton of disagreement about how big of a deal AI is, about how severe some impacts are, and how likely some impacts are. And it's really hard to wrap your head around even the number of potentially concerning things about the rise of artificial intelligence. I already am scrolling TikTok. I am seeing things that are fake. I've probably seen videos that I think are real, that were not real. Are we going to let these things decide how somebody gets sentenced after doing a crime? Already, those systems are obviously not good. We also have a thing that already happened where generative AI models were trained using intellectual property that did not agree to be in the training data, and now those things are being used to replace the intellectual property that was non-consensually used to train the AI. This does not seem fair. I think we should look at what AI could potentially be good at, what weaknesses human beings have, and mix those two things together. And what I'm concerned about is the thing that's already happening, where AI, that the goal of the AI is to give us stuff that will keep us engaged on a video platform, and it starts to optimize for things we did not expect. Nobody said, give these people outrage bait. What they said was keep people on the website. And outrage bait because it became a very compelling kind of content that humans happily supplied because we would love to get more attention because we're humans. And that's many of us, including myself, want attention. So what I am concerned with is we are not that difficult, ultimately, probably, to manipulate.
He's a lot more tolerant to it than most leftists, I would say, but he's also not welcoming it with open arms. And actually, a third thing about Hank is that he's the science guy. People see him as a reputable source of information. Should people be seeing any YouTuber as a reputable source of information? I don't know. Is that his fault? I don't know. But knowing that he's been heavily relying on AI for educational content it's a source of concern for people, because now it's like, how much of what we learned from you is actually incorrect and really poorly researched? People have already been feeling sort of skeptical about his content for a while. Maybe you guys remember that last summer there was that SciShow video about knitting that had quite a lot of inaccurate information, and the script came off as rather misogynistic. And according to several people in my comment section, there was apparently also a video about hormone replacement therapy that came off as kind of stigmatizing in a similar way. So there's this growing distrust between Hank and his audience. It's not simply, oh, we're canceling him because he read out a ChatGPT response that turns out he says is not a ChatGPT response, but we still think it is. That's not what's going on here. It's more like, how do we know that the information you're conveying is accurate? How can we feel safe with you as your community members? Can we look up to you? And also, are you doing okay? We enjoy your content. Are you still enjoying making the content? And it's not the first time that Hank has had a run-in with an AI-related issue. A few days ago, actually, he also admitted to using AI to help him merge 2 chapters of a book he's been working on. This was his response to that on Reddit. Trust me, this book is 100% human typing. I have been typing for so long. I asked an LLM for advice on the merge and talked through some various options before deciding how I wanted to do it. Maybe I shouldn't have done that, but I didn't say, like, please turn these 2 chapters into 1 chapter. I cut it out of the final episode, if I remember correctly, because Catherine and I ended up having a somewhat tense conversation about me working so much on Smush and 4x3. Or maybe I cut it out because I thought it sounded bad and was afraid people would clip it. Last week, he also accidentally put an AI-generated diagram into his video titled, "You Have Never Seen a Normal Star," and according to his Reddit comment, he simply didn't realize it at the time and removed it shortly after. So there's this argument I want to talk about that AI is a tool, and people are saying AI is not a means to an end, and like, if you think it's bad, you're just using it wrong. And Hank is actually using it correctly, quote unquote, because he's using it as a research aid. But my concern is that in this context, is it really making things better. Like, it doesn't seem to be making Hank's research process easier or even more efficient. And in general, I'm yet to see somebody's life improve because they started using AI. All I'm seeing, honestly, is more pressure to deliver now that there is a technology that can let you send 500 emails in a day instead of 50. Like, I'm seeing higher quotas and KPIs and honestly lower quality content. You're compiling info more efficiently. Like, are you really, first of all? And also, how good is that info? I honestly think it just makes us less competent. It makes us less creative. It makes us develop learned helplessness. It's like using a calculator for 5 times 7. Like, yeah, that is the intended purpose, and a calculator is a tool, but like, is that really helping? Is that really helping anyone? I think it's just ruining our motivation to try things for ourselves and things that we were once able to do just fine. As the Cavernical phrases it, AI is homogenizing our society, our culture.
I've actually always hated AI because of what it does to us as a human, species, I guess. Because it homogenizes language. It helps even further with the homogenization of culture, which social media also enables. Also, it makes us even more lazy than we're becoming.
It's almost like a beauty standard wherein everybody is just like adopting the same features through plastic surgery and eventually looking exactly the same. In terms of research, ChatGPT is probably capable of providing you with some resources, but I think if you're reading and regurgitating articles that are being handed to you, you're not really researching, you're just paraphrasing. I assume that Hank is still researching to a certain extent, like which involves actually going through different databases and keywords and compiling various networks of thought. And you still need to be critical and reject papers as well, for instance. You have to build your own theoretical framework. This is a research skill. And if you're going to treat AI as a search engine to help you find papers, you might as well just go to the databases themselves where you can actually, search Boolean terms and search for different timelines and things like that. And that way it's a lot easier to also come across lesser known scholars. More so, ChatGPT is also biased in many ways, and it's gonna generate hallucinations, so papers and scholars that straight up don't even exist, and it's gonna emphasize what's already hegemonic. So even if it's saving you the time of going to, separate databases, you still need to put in the work to firstly, check if these resources even exist, and then you have to also critically sift through them. So I'm really curious about the extent to which using AI for a research aid actually cuts down the amount of work you have to do. I think if your research topic has a lot of pre-existing literature, then ChatGPT is an okay starting point at best. That being said, do I think that validates its usage? I don't think so. Because lest we forget, LLMs are either owned by pedophilic billionaires, or they're being funded for Israeli diplomacy, or they're just feeding people's delusions to the point of suicide or violence or general mental health issues, such as is the case with Hank, or all of the above. If Janet down the street abuses dogs in her free time, but she bakes really good cookies, am I gonna invite her to my cookout? No. So firstly, I don't think it necessarily even makes for a good research tool, and secondly, even if it were, I don't think that validates its usage. And I find it concerning that AI as a tool is even a talking point in defense of it. As if it being useful is going to magically make all the other implications go away. Are you good? Are you calm? I'm gonna put her back, but this is Anna, and she's one of my rescues right now. I'm gonna put you back, but I need you to be calm, okay? Okay. Hank says he's been under immense pressure recently, and that is something that I can really see. He has multiple channels, he has a podcast, he's an author. I didn't even know about Smush or 4x3 before reading his response. Turns out on his website he's got these mini games, kind of like the New York Times does. Definitely doing a lot. And I recall him saying a while ago that he feels this strong pressure to create as much as possible because his cancer was giving him an impending sense of doom. He's been in remission for a couple of years, but I wonder if there's still a bit of that residual feeling. This is something I personally really resonate with as a creative person myself who's also disabled. It is physically impossible for me to bring all of my creative ideas into fruition within my lifetime, especially when my chronic pain is impeding my creative workflow. And that can feel really morbid. And AI, I think, raises these expectations to create and perform even more, because it generates very generic sentences but with perfect grammar, and it can create voices that maybe speak with absolutely no emotion but also speak with perfect pronunciation. And we've got these slop channels now that churn out multiple videos in a day. I do think that adds to the rising pressure to at least deliver instantaneously. The Cavernical was also talking about how he has gotten hate for his accent and for sometimes mispronouncing things or getting things wrong from time to time, which I think is just cruel.
You rely on AI because you don't want to mess up. But that's why it just sucks so bad. Like, you shouldn't be scared to mess up. I mess up in my videos. I speak off the cuff. Sometimes I say stuff that is just like outright wrong because I've misinterpreted a historical fact, or maybe I say a word wrong, but I'm not scared to fail because I'm being my authentic self. The same way, people have often criticized the way I speak, right? Because of my accent and my dialect, where maybe I don't pronounce certain things the same as you. And I'm just like, fuck you. This is how I talk. Either like it or don't. I don't give a shit, right? But I feel like so much of reliance on AI comes out of insecurity. Like, people are so insecure and they're so overthinking all these things. It's like, I will outsource it to AI because I can't be wrong. I can't write something bad. I have to do it in a certain way. But what it does is it makes everyone homogenous into using this robotic language.
It's not hard to like turn on a camera and then talk to it in the comfort of your own home, but there are certain difficulties that come with being a content creator, especially when you have so many platforms and a public image the size of Hank's. And I think people who use AI are losing their empathy because you can berate a chatbot all you want. It's never going to argue back to you. And I also think that social media algorithms and viewers are very discriminatory. If you're conventionally attractive, you'll get more views. If your video quality, your sound quality is higher, you'll get more views. I think the insecurity thing is definitely true. There's a lot of creators who are like, my camera's not good, my English isn't good. And they're under this impression that if they use AI to bypass those things, it's going to help their channel grow. And the landscape is constantly changing. Algorithms are constantly changing. Trends are also going in and out of style. I mean, your niche could be super popular during COVID and then 5 years down the line, you're like barely making ends meet. But I find it incredibly sad that rather than finding a support system, talking to somebody, taking a step back, that the solution, if you can even call it that, is to consult AI, which is the very thing that is causing so much harm to this media landscape. And we're in capitalistic hell, we're working our lives away, everybody's tired, nobody's got enough time for themselves. Imagine working a whole day and coming home so tired, taking care of the dog, taking care of the kids, washing yourself, washing the dishes, cooking. You finally have an hour to yourself before it all restarts, and you can finally watch the video that you saved to your playlist in the morning that you were looking forward to winding down and watching the whole day, and then you find out it's AI slop. I would feel so disrespected. If you're a creator, you're not actually entitled to the attention of your audience. There are so many things that somebody can choose to watch. The fact that they watch you is like, that's a huge privilege. So the fact that you didn't actually like make the content yourself is like, come on.
You just get sick of reading and hearing the same shit all the time. And I get so angry about this because I'm so fucking sick of having YouTubers I like, and then suddenly I hear the dreaded words.
And I suppose it depends a bit on the type of content that you make. Like, it makes me think of another content creator, Will Tennyson, and I used to really like his content because I'm into, you know, the world of fitness and nutrition, and I'm very curious about what it's like to be a bodybuilder. But in recent months, he's been using these really tacky AI-generated thumbnails, and it also feels like he's using ChatGPT to think of video concepts and write his jokes. Like, it's just not the same anymore, and I'm still really interested in the subject matter, but I just don't like his content anymore. But I feel like with Will, his AI integration hasn't impeded his success too much. I feel like his demographic doesn't care too much about the ethics of AI, first of all, but also it doesn't change the fact that he's still a bodybuilder, he's still a nutritionist. For Hank, it matters a lot more because he's a trusted figure, not because he's a bodybuilder, but because he's supposed to be a reliable source of information. And ChatGPT is not a reliable source of information, so why is he using ChatGPT? That changes everything.
Why would you do this? Like, why would you build a career on YouTube not doing this and then switch? And you can only think of it in the most cynical ways of, you are a lazy fuck and you're a greedy fuck as well. Like, you only want to make YouTube videos to make money, because where is the passion and fun in using AI to write the fucking script for you? Like, where is your sense of individuality? And I just, you know, for someone like Hank Green to do it, it just shows you how much these people often take their audience for granted.
I think a more lenient explanation is just burnout. Time and time again, I see people start a platform for the fun of it and they get really successful. So they're like, okay, I'm gonna go full time, make it my job. And then once it becomes a job, it's not fun anymore. You have to worry about your fluctuating income and actually subscriber counts, and people in the comment section start mattering. And it's like, oh shit, well now this isn't fun anymore. And they don't want to sabotage all that they've built, so they end up sabotaging all that they've built by using AI. But AI use or not, I think this was a much needed intervention for Hank. And honestly, I just hope he's okay, because I really do get that impression that he is stretching himself way too thin and trying to be in way too many places at once. And I think that is partly what caused that knitting video to land so poorly, is he was just regurgitating a script that somebody else gave him without really thinking critically about it, because he didn't have the energy to. I don't think he's a bad person. I don't think he deserves the hate and the weird threats that he's been getting for the past year, I think. I've seen comments saying that he can afford to have a researcher, he can afford to have a scriptwriter, so he should just do that if he wants to keep making content. I want to preface this next part by saying that firstly, people grossly overestimate the income of a YouTuber. If you think of like your average successful YouTuber with several hundreds of thousands of subscribers, they're probably middle class. Me personally, I'm like barely breaking even. Most of them are not like Mr. Beast, PewDiePie level. But in the case of Hank Green, I do think he's pretty comfortable. I mean, even on just Hank's channel, he makes maybe 5 to 10 uploads a month, and they are clearing 1 million views on average. That's pretty good money. It's definitely financially plausible to outsource some of his work. However, speaking from my own experience, I understand not wanting to do that, because that is something I don't want to do, because I want agency over my own channel, and I don't feel good having extra hands, extra eyes on it, especially because it's also hard to find people you can trust. It's also hard to have somebody be financially dependent on you to a certain extent when you yourself don't even know if you're going to make rent next month. SciShow is ran by a team. Complexly is ran by a team. I completely understand if Hank just wants Hank's channel to stay Hank's channel and run it completely by himself and have something that's 100% his own. And I imagine that AI use might give you sort of that illusion of agency, because typing prompts can make you feel like you're being independent, you're doing research, especially when the platform is praising you in the process, saying things such as, I admire your curiosity, I appreciate the pushback. But once again, I think it's a poor solution to this problem. I think that's all I had to say today. I'm open to hearing your takes, but if your stance is still for the use of generative AI, please give me like an actual talking point. Don't just say, oh, you should embrace it because it's inevitable, or like, if you don't use it, you're just scared of new technology, you're a snob, you're a Luddite, because those are not talking points. That's just being weird and icky. So please give me a compelling argument, because I would love to hear what you have to say. And also don't just say, well, everyone's using it, because I don't think that makes things morally and ethically acceptable just because most people are doing it. And obviously Hank's situation is just one anecdote, but I do think as such a successful creator struggling to navigate AI use in content creation after successfully residing within this industry for so long, I think there's definitely something to be said there. So let me know what y'all think. And before I end, I know y'all are waiting for the pattern for the sky. The testing is taking longer than expected. I know I said July. Now the new deadline is looking more like late August to early September. So thank you guys for your patience. I have such a wonderful group of testers, and they are working so hard to make this pattern good and fun and clear. And I've got another crochet pattern in the works, and it's going to be a wearable one, which I'm really stoked about. I really appreciate y'all for watching this far. And just so you know, I don't only do commentary. I'm a fiber artist. I'm an animal rescuer. I get a lot of comments on my commentary videos being like, did you make that thing in your background? Or how did you get into pigeons? And I have vlogs. The algorithm seems to hide them, but I do have vlogs if you're curious to learn more about just what the fuck I'm doing. Don't send any hate to Hank Green or anyone that I ever talk about in my commentary videos. It's not the point of these videos. Oh. I appreciate y'all for watching, and I will see you baddies next time. Bye!